Hi there, and welcome to Let's Slow Down, a podcast for all of you who feel tired and stressed from this overwhelming world. Here we'll have fun, inspiring conversations about living life on our own terms and explore ways to ease the pace of our modern world, because life really is good when you're relaxed enough to be present for it. I'm your host, Anne-Marie Stolting, and I welcome you to this space where I hope to inspire you to slow down, because life is too short to let it go by in a blur. So take a deep breath, relax, and enjoy the show. Welcome back to another episode of Let's Slow Down. Today's episode will focus on mindfulness and how it empowers us to make choices more aligned with our true selves. Today I have local mom friend of mine, Sue Murphy, with me. Sue is the founder of Mindful and Empowering Kids, where she uses yoga, mental and physical fitness, breathing and mindful activities to teach children new skills to empower their social and emotional intelligence, all while strengthening and calming their bodies. Welcome, Sue. Thanks for coming on.
Hi, how are you? Thank you so much for having me.
Excited to chat today about all this stuff.
I'm so excited to chat, and I actually wish I could teleport myself back to a kid and have this access, because the way that you just said it sounds absolutely amazing.
Right? I'm like, you could start this for mindful and empowering adults too, Sue. I think you need to have two programs going.
So real funny. How this all came about really was for me as being an adult, and I was sitting as a stay-at-home mom, and I was looking for something to do, and I got involved in an MLM business. And I had weekly phone calls, and it was women empowering other women. And I remember getting off those phone calls thinking, I don't really want to sell beauty products or whatever it was I was selling, but I loved getting on that phone call and hearing all the empowering stuff. And I thought, how could we possibly do this? Here we are, a bunch of 30-year-olds sitting on a Sunday night phone call. Why can't we do this with kids? Why can we not empower kids at a young age so then at 30, we're not re-questioning ourselves? So that's initially how the bug got put in my ear. And then it took about 5 or 6 years for it really to come to fruition.
Wow.
And that was in a classroom.
Ooh, okay. So what did you, so I figured, give us a little background on all of it. Like, what happened in that classroom that day, and where were you at where you felt like this was something you had to pursue?
So super interesting. So I took that little tidbit. It was tucked away in my brain as an adult thinking, oh, all these women empower women. Wouldn't it be amazing to empower kids? And as an educator, because I am an educator, I thought I was doing that already. And I definitely was, through the course of the day, through the language that I was teaching them, through the academics and all that stuff. But what I started to find in my classroom in the last couple of years of teaching as a classroom teacher, I started to see the pieces were missing. The kids were missing foundational skills. And I work with kindergartners, so we really were taking them from the ground up.
Sure.
And I noticed that it was hard to communicate. And I noticed that it was hard to transition. And I noticed that they didn't have the joy that I thought a typical 5 and 6-year-old would have had.
Yes.
They had more anxiety. They had more stress. They had more expectations. And it just didn't seem fun. And it didn't seem like they were building the correct foundation to be their best selves early on in education.
If you're stressed and you have anxiety at 5 and you don't have joy, I mean, when can you have it? And what kind of path is that going to set you on? Right.
Yeah. And what I also found was they didn't realize it.
Mm-hmm.
That was just how they were growing up. They were growing up in this stressful, messy place. And I thought we can do more, or I thought I could do more. So what I wound up doing was I instituted Yoga Tuesdays into my classroom. And I started real small, and I started bringing in 6 social emotional skills. There was gratitude. There was self-esteem. There was positive self-talk. There was friendship building. There was emotions, so dealing with our fears and everything else, excitement and nervous, all of that. I tried it for 6 weeks. And by the third week, the kids would come back from lunch and ask if it was Yoga Tuesday. Now remember, these are kindergartners, so they didn't know what day it was most times.
Right.
But they were asking for
Oh,
it.
they loved
And
it.
I found over that time, it was only going to be 6 weeks that I was going to do it. And then those 6 weeks passed, and I decided to keep it for the rest of the school year. And I did find that they were getting little tidbits. And remember, this is foundation, which I
Sure.
think is so important to understand for us as adults, and then also for teaching our children. These are skills that are learned over time. Over time. This is not a one-shot deal.
Right.
And I think that that's really important to hone in on. And that became more important to me over everything else, over the academics, over the sports, over what lunch I was bringing in, over how messy my hair looked that day, and then I started to transfer that into my kids. The small things didn't really matter as much as the overall health of our bodies. And once I started to shift that focus, there became my passion. And there I decided that I was leaving the classroom from an educator standpoint in that way. And I was taking on a new role to empower kids in a different way.
I love that. I mean, what you saw firsthand. And can I ask you how on these Yoga Tuesdays, how long was the program for that day?
So when I was in the classroom, obviously there's a whole host of other things,
Of
and other
course.
educators will absolutely
So
agree that
structured.
to fit one more thing in
Right.
is almost impossible. But then that takes back to this mindfulness, right? And being aware of yourself and your surroundings. So for me, I found that it was important for them to have about 45 minutes.
Okay.
So they had 45 minutes in that day. Did it take away from other stuff? It 100% did. Sometimes it took the place of my writer's workshop. Sometimes it took the place of phonics. Sometimes it took the place of whatever. But it was important for that one day a week for 45 minutes to carve it out.
How valuable it was and how much you started to see after the 6 weeks, like, no, we're going to continue this. They like this. So it wasn't, I think what I'm getting at is it wasn't really that much time, but it started to make a really big difference. And I would argue that the 45 minutes you spent on that activity that day, yes, it might have taken like actual time away from other subjects, but how much did it add?
I think, right, it's hard we're in this world where we're trying to, everything has to be accounted for, right? You have to see a result to everything that you're doing. So it's really hard to justify taking that 45 minutes out to not see a result right away. And then to do that over and over again, to not see a result, people would argue it's not worth it. There's not enough time. Whereas if I sat down and taught a phonics lesson or I taught a writer's workshop lesson, I could see that when they went back to their desks or doing their work, I can see what I taught either transferred or didn't transfer. But I agree with you. I definitely agree with you. I think the short term putting in the work produces long-term results. And I also argue it's foundational skills. I look at a lot of adults right now that are missing these foundational skills to make their days run smoother, more manageable, less stressful.
We all, I don't remember ever learning this stuff as a kid, ever. And I feel like I'm learning with my kids through a lot of this as they start to get that exposure. And as we also look for it elsewhere, because there's still not enough, and I was thinking back when you were talking about, it breaks my heart that there were these little kindergartners that were like not really happy, and bubbly and just full of imagination and excitement. And if they were like that, and I know that was before COVID for you, right? So I'm just thinking like that was then. What are they like now? What were they like the past couple of years with everything that they've been through? Where even if a kid had that kind of bubbly personality, it might have gotten a little bit zapped or a lot zapped with the pandemic stuff. And then post COVID, you know, as we're emerging from it, the new normal, what we're seeing. I mean, this problem is, I feel like we're just probably touching the very tip of it.
Conversation with my teenage daughter this morning. I took her to school and I was telling her how I'm in schools right now. I'm in elementary schools working, and I'm walking through the hallways and I'm watching these children now freely walk through the hallways without masks and just kind of doing their, what we would have called their normal walk. And I asked her what it felt like when we were back in the classrooms during COVID time. And she said it was crazy, right? Everybody had to, be in a certain spot and walk a certain way and act a certain way and be fearful, and what that must have felt like and what that must have looked like. And really, the bigger question is, what is going to be the result of that?
Right.
Because there is, right? Everything we do, there is going to be a result of. But having tools and having those foundations to be able to manage that and to get past that, I think is really important. Not just to say it happened, here we are, we made it through.
Right.
How did you make it through? Did you just swipe it under the rug? Did you identify those emotions? And did you process it? And I think that that's an important step that we're not teaching our youth, and us as adults, we're not modeling it.
Exactly. And obviously we know whatever, I mean, I'm a former teacher too, and anything you could tell so quickly once you got to know a child, kind of what the home life was like, right? Whether it was super stressful and busy, or whether they were allowed to be a kid, whether the parents were like more friends with the kids or were they parents, what you could see a lot. So this all transfers. I mean, everything that we're seeing in our youth is transferring to what's happening in homes everywhere, and, how we are as adults and what we do model or don't model. And, everything they notice it all. So breaks my heart when I see an anxiety of mine come out in my child, which it does, so it's like, we have to break that cycle where we as adults learn how more coping mechanisms and how to process this stuff so that it doesn't just continue, because I feel like when we were growing up, it was kind of like, well, that's just how it is, or it was just different. And we did not really talk about how we were feeling or why we were feeling a certain way, or maybe, oh, let's change this so that this doesn't continue. But we just kind of like full speed ahead all the time. And I feel like now that the kids are back in the classrooms, there's been so much pressure on like, okay, we have to catch up. We missed so much academically. I know when I went to back to school night, my third graders teacher, she's amazing. She said, you know what, the kids are going to be okay. They're going to learn their language arts. They're going to learn their math. They're going to be fine. She goes, what I have a problem with is that they can't look each other in the eye and say good morning. They don't know how to do that. And so she has taken a step back and she's put a lot of time and energy into their morning routine. I think it's way longer than it normally would have been because they're working on these things. And she said so much stuff comes up when the kids are given this, safe space where they kind of are learning to open up with each other and talk about what's going on, how they're feeling about things. And she said sometimes the kids start crying about something they were nervous about some test or something. And one girl starts crying. And then a bunch of them are like, no, I feel like that too. And this stuff is so important. And I would imagine that having that conversation about, yeah, we're scared, we're taking a test today because we're 8, having that conversation and maybe taking that extra, 10 minutes to talk about that and let the kids know, oh, okay, it's not just you. Oh, he feels that way. She feels that way. Validates them, lets them kind of process it. I bet you they all did better on the test that day because they knew, okay, I'm all right. It's fine. It's just a test. We're all a little scared about it. I think these things that aren't measurable come out in everything that is, right?
So there's a quote that I love, and it says, nobody really sees a flower. It's so small and we don't have the time to see it. And to see something takes time. And it's Georgia O'Keeffe, and she obviously does her art through flowers and That was her purpose, was to be able to give people a moment to stop, to look, and to see. Adults were caught up in this rat race of achieving, of quantifying, of succeeding. We don't have time to stop, to look, to see. We're teaching our children the same thing, to achieve, to keep moving, to keep progressing. We're not teaching them to stop, to look, and to see. If we do that, I think the window gets bigger. It gets more, there's more clarity. There's more emotion. There's less focus on that test. Those kids are probably more prepared for those tests than they think they are. But they have this tunnel vision of it has to be a certain way. I have to get a certain grade and it takes me to the next level. As opposed to all that amazing magic that's in their bodies to get them to, one, sit down and focus on a test, do it in a timely manner, and do it with a whole bunch of people around. There's a lot of outside circumstances that are taking place. And I think that, that teacher gets it.
Yep.
That gets it, really gets the understanding that we all are human and that there's a lot of outside variables and that everybody will take a little piece here and there to look, to see, and to be able to move forward. I could scream it, right? I could scream it at the top of my lungs. To me, it just makes so much sense. But unfortunately, and I always have other people in my ears saying, this is society. This is what we're supposed to do.
Yep.
This is how it should go. And my biggest recommendation for adults and for kids, and something I practice almost daily, is throwing the word should out.
Thank you. I was going to stop you when you were saying it. I learned that I hate that word and I use it so much, but I've just learned this year in my 41st year that I say and think should all the time. I started going therapy because I was so overwhelmed, and it was my therapist who's amazing. And I would, little plug for therapy, do it. If you got too much noise in your head, do it. Cause it helps clear it all out. And it helps you just take a better look at what you're thinking, why you're thinking these things. And apparently I had very unrealistic expectations. And I used the word should all over the place. And she's like, hold on, who says you should do that? And I'm like, I don't know. It's just, they do. They always, and it was like a really big aha moment for me. And then I realized now, once you're aware of something, I'm like, oh my gosh, you say it, we think it, tell it to our kids all the time. And I hate it. It's awful.
I will say, number one, throw it out. And really try to encourage our kids to get rid of that language.
Yes.
And it's very hard, right? It's very hard for children. They need consistency. They need routines. They do need to learn responsibility, and they do need to do certain things. But I'll give you an example. My daughter is getting ready for basketball tryouts, and we put her in some private basketball trainings, just condition her body, not anything for any other reason. She was tired on Monday. She was tired. Her body was tired. She's a high school student. And she said, I don't want to go. The should was creeping out. And I asked her why, because I think that that's important. And she said, my body's tired. I have some work to do. And it really isn't necessary. It's extra. And she was able to articulate that, but she's a high school student. And because she was able to articulate that, it's what her body needed. She didn't go. Should she have gone? Maybe, right? Like in that world of they said to. But we listened to her body, and I listened to her explanation of it. Now, that same child in 4th and 5th grade was also the kid that was part of the should. You should be in extra trainings. You should be on every travel team. You should be going for clubs. And we pushed it. and we pushed it, and we got, whatever it is, 5, 6 years later, or whatever that is, 4 years later, we have a different conversation. And I think that empowers her.
Absolutely. The fact that she could articulate those feelings and reasons to you, she's wise beyond her years, and if she can be figuring that out now, it's only going to serve her as she grows.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on as an adult, right?
Yeah.
And we say this all the time, like small kids, small problems, big kids, big problems. Same things happen with adults.
Yeah.
So if we don't have those tools in place, we're not going to be able to manage it as adults. And if you start to see the coping skills have gone down. You see 20-year-olds that are breaking down all over, are unable to get to the next step. That has to change. It has to. I mean, I'm a big believer of hitting rock bottom. I also go to therapy. I think it's important. In fact, I love it. I look forward to it.
I do too.
I absolutely love it. Some days are super heavy and some days are not, and they're super inspiring. But I do think that it is a wonderful, wonderful place to kind of unload everything. Oh, I just lost my train of thought because I got really jazzed up on therapy.
I was going to say, I feel like especially our generation, we almost need it to get these tools that could have, would have, should have gotten as children, better late than never. Hey, if your daughter can articulate these things at 14, 15, that I'm just learning how to articulate now, I mean, that's incredible, and I feel like the things that I learn, all these, like, I feel like I have a little toolbox now and I can tackle these issues as they come up, because they will. It's not a matter of if you have a problem one day, it's just when, and that's life. And I think, and that's not going to change, but being able to address them and then to get through them in a healthy way makes all the difference. Because then if hitting the rock bottom, which yes, at some point it's going to happen, but that's the whole reason why I started this podcast and this community, because I felt so depleted and overwhelmed, and I felt like I was the only one. And I know I'm not. I'm talking to you. I mean, we live in the same town and we're on the same page here with this stuff, but you get so caught up and in all of it. And I think that is our society, but I don't think it has to be that way. At least I'm telling myself at this point, enough already. And I'm going to take the path less taken. I know that and I probably won't always be the most popular one in my house with my kids when I'm saying that's too much for us right now. You're going to miss that today. But I am just so sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I refuse to accept that the rat race is the norm. It's not going to be my norm. I don't want it to be for my kids, because at some point it's going to catch up with everybody that's in it. And I think we deserve better. We get one shot. And I look back, we have kids in high school, all of us, it's like all of a sudden they're in high school. I feel like I blinked, and I feel like a lot of it's been a blur. And I know that parents of young kids, some of it's a blur because you don't get the sleep you need. It's just a lot.
Yeah.
But I want to enjoy, I want to make the most of all of it now, from here on out, and teach them how to do the same thing, because I think we all deserve it. And all these things, let's talk about some of the things. So you kind of told us what you've been seeing and your why, but what are ways to navigate this now? So now we have we have someone listening right now who's like, yeah, that's me. I'm overwhelmed. I'm doing X, Y, and Z. I'm being pulled at all different directions. How do you start tackling that?
So I think it's individual, right? There are some people, I use the word in my private classes, we talk about meditation as a form of rest. And it is a form of rest. But some people and some kids have a hard time sitting still to rest.
Sure. Some adults too, right?
Right. So anyone, right? Let's just say a person might have a hard time sitting still to rest. Some people, and this is myself, my rest actually comes in the form of moving. So my body gets regenerated and relaxed when I move, For me, it's actually really stressful to stop. Okay, so, and I get in my head and things start happening when I stop. So I do think that is an individual thing. But number one, be aware of it. If you're aware that you're overwhelmed, if you're aware of what's going on, create a list. Think about it. What are you overwhelmed with? And then when you start to chronicle that list, what can you take off of that list? You said it. You might start saying no to things now.
Yep.
You might look at that list and total sidebar, I have the day off today. And my day off today, I was looking at my dogs and I'm like, oh, a day off means I could just lay down and rest like my dogs do. Well, no, I'm a mom. I run a house. I will pick up my children later. And the list went down. And it's long.
And you know what? Those, not to interrupt you, but those things, I think that we forget how much we have on our plates just with the day to day, just before you add like the extra stuff that you're signing up for. We have to keep these people alive. We have to feed them. We have to go not only make the food, but go buy the food, order the food, whatever you do. There's so many things. Take care of the dogs, get them out for walks. There's so much that we have to do as women, to just go through the day by day. And I'm just starting to give myself a little grace where it's like, yeah, that's a lot. Before you add anything else, that's a lot. That's a full-time job on top of any other job you have, which we've all got them,
I'm starting to do that too. It's taken 40 plus years.
Yep.
To figure that out, to start that. So what I have learned, and I can only speak for myself, I told you that being still is not easy for me. Busy is easier for me. Being aware. That's where that big word mindfulness comes into play, is just being aware of what is actually taking place. That would be my first step. My second step, and it's a new tool that I just started to learn, is compartmentalizing things. What's of importance that moment, that day, not the week. I mean, we're coming into the holidays. If we want to talk about these and overwhelmed,
yes,
we're here. We're here. And if you sit down and think about Thanksgiving and Christmas and all that stuff that's coming into place, those are all happening in the future. How do you compartmentalize that to get through the day? Sometimes you have to get through the hour. And what can you do in that moment? For me, today, I have laundry to do. And I know you asked me if I got my stuff done. It's not. It's not, because I stopped to meet with you. The old me, before I was aware of this, probably would have, when you gave me that out to push it back a little bit, I would have said yes. I would have said yes, and then it probably would have steamrolled for the rest of the day.
Yep.
Being aware, compartmentalizing what's of importance for that day are two big things. And I will say number 3, which takes number 1 spot, carve in self-care.
And don't feel guilty about it.
It doesn't have to be big.
Yep.
It does not have to be big. And those 3 things, that's it, right? Simple. You model that. What are your kids seeing? Your kids are seeing so many skills happening at one time that aren't producing a tangible result, right? They're not giving you a grade.
Right.
They're not giving you an award. They're just showing your body healthier. They're showing your body moving through the day more manageably, and it feels good. Over time, it just creates a less stressful environment. We have the stresses outside. We have it. I mean, they're all coming at us every single day. Why do we need to add more?
And how awesome. I'm just thinking, like, to come home and just to come home to a nurturing, calm environment where whatever happens out in that world, at work and school and wherever, to know that you have that space to come home and really feel like everything's okay. and just feel like it's like that big warm hug, maybe a real warm hug, but just the whole environment of just like, okay, I can breathe again. I feel like the weight's lifted off. And if we're modeling that, and that is their normal environment at home, then they will know no other way but to grow up behaving that way as young adults, as older adults, right? And if self-care, if for me, I like to try to take a bath once in a while when I'm feeling really tapped out. That's my thing. Some people love them, some people hate them. For me, I can, take a bath for 20 minutes and I feel like, okay, I can regroup. I feel better. And I used to like say, if I was going to go do that, tell the kids, oh, I'll just be real quick. I'm like, you know what? No, I don't need to rush it. It's okay. Like, why am I saying that? And they don't care. So, but for them to know, like, all right, mom's going to go take a half hour and take care of herself because she needs a minute or 30 minutes or an hour. And that's okay. Whereas I feel like so often we feel this guilt that comes with it. Even if we're not spending a lot of time or money doing something, it's like there's the should. Well, I should be doing X, Y, and Z with the kids or for the house or this or that. There's always that list, that laundry. It never ends. It's always going to be there. So what's not going to be there is these little moments for ourselves, because if we skip those and push those off enough, we're not going to be able to get through those regular things that we need to do.
No. So I will tell you, back in 2017, I got very ill. I had to stop. And I just told you, I don't like to stop ever, but I was forced to. And luckily I had great doctors and I had great support system and I was able to get healthy. But it was a shock. I was forced to do it. And all I remember were for years, my mom saying, you're running too fast. You're too busy. You have to slow down. You have to take time for yourself. And that just wasn't my personality. It's still not my personality. If we keep going at the rate that we're going, we will be forced to stop. And I learned that lesson hard in 2017. So we can do it, right? They always say, like, you can pay for your self-care now and it might be expensive, or you can pay for your doctor bills later. It's your choice. So we do have the choice to do that. My hope, and it's part of my passion, is that these children aren't faced with something that I was faced back then, is to just give them the space and the tools to be able to go through the days and manage them healthier. The baths are good. I have a friend, every single night she gets a glass of wine, she goes in the bath and she reads her book. And she did it from when those babies were infants. And I said, what about 7 o'clock bedtime? What about the feedings? She said, I don't care. I don't care. I need this. My husband will take it. They'll scream and cry. I don't care. I need this. That was way before 2017. It didn't resonate with me. Okay. I have friends that build in a walk every single day. I have friends that sit down with a cup of coffee. I do. I went to the coffee shop this morning because I knew I needed to fit something in there for me. Self-care has got to be number one.
I love that. Yeah, it's important. It's so important.
Our kids that, because I will tell you, and this will go back to why I do what I do and what I hear. If I ask the kids what's the most important thing, because I do often, kids will tell you everything, even stuff you want to know. What is the most important thing? The high school kids, 1,000,000% where they're going to college. 1,000,000% what their grades look like right now and where their career is. Little kids, what sports, what activities, and where are their friends? And it has to be quantified. It has to be. They don't see any other way. No point does anyone say I need to rest.
Right.
No point. I used to have to fight with my own children to figure out, to help them understand that just because your bedtime is 9:30 or 9 o'clock doesn't mean if you're tired at 8 o'clock, you couldn't go to sleep at 8 o'clock. They could not understand that.
Yeah. Why would I do that? Why would I do that, Mom? I have another hour.
It
Yeah.
says it's 9. But you're falling asleep or you're cranky or your body just is telling you you need it. So it's just, I guess full circle is just awareness.
Yep.
Awareness of what's happening and then doing what's right for your body. We're all overwhelmed. We're all overwhelmed. And one of the most recent things I'm hearing, which kind of makes me sad, but also gives us space to change, is a lot of kids don't want kids.
Interesting.
And when I ask the question why, they respond with, it's too much work.
Wow.
And I'll always be tired. And I think that everything's a lesson, right? And I think that it's an eye-opening lesson to say that we're modeling something that can easily be changed.
Yes.
It can.
Wow.
And we can show them the beauty of all these kids, right? The beauty of that warm home, that beauty of that nurturing feeling, that safe feeling, all the wonderful things that come with having a family and children. And change and flip that narrative.
Wow. Yeah, I think that says a lot. If that's what that's what they're seeing, and I'm thinking, my kids, I've never asked my kids that question, but I feel like they might have that same answer to ask them later. But yeah, there's more to it. And, and I think it boils down to, like you said, the self-care and also the self-worth that we're entitled to. We're enough the way we are, and we're encouraged and allowed to feel happy and to feel space and to feel free, because it's not very freeing to have all these weights on your shoulders and all these commitments and all these obligations. It's like you're in jail. We put ourselves there. We've made those choices.
Who's it for? Is it for you? Is it for your parents? Is it for grown-up parents, right? Because there's a lot of grown-ups that are still looking for approval from their parents. Is it for yourself? And I think once you get clear on who is it for, that becomes freeing.
Yes.
That becomes freeing. And then the shoulders are down and those blocks are off your back.
Yep.
But it's hard.
It's hard. Like you said, it's a process. We're never going to wake up one day and be like, okay, I've got it all figured out. I'm Zen for the rest of my life. I can handle anything that comes my way. Literally depends on the day, sometimes the hour, right? I mean,
I have one of my really close girlfriends and we have this thing where we share our pocket for the day or the other. Like, hey, I need you to help me out. I need a pocket. I'm having a really bad day. And then we'll talk through what the day looked like. And we do this very often, because you know what? In that day, in that laundry list of things, it might be really hard to find it. And it may be really small, but they're always there. They're always there. So that's another tool that I've found with my friends to do this. And just think, like, it could have been, the person that gave you your coffee today. It could have been the checkout and ShopRite. It could have been you sitting down and putting your feet up and your kid came over and just snuggled in for a minute. It doesn't have to be these grandiose adventures.
Yep. And I think there's so many moments like that in our day, every single day. They're there no matter what. It's just a matter of whether we slow down enough to see them and feel them.
Yes. And giving yourself the space to do that.
Yep.
And that's what happens at my Me Kids classes. I give them the space to just be. And sometimes their being is super messy. And sometimes it's really organized and I can put it on social media and it's amazing. But it's in that mess that you find the beauty.
Oh, yes. It is. It is in the mess that we find the beauty, because the mess is the real life. That's the real thing. Like what you're saying, these high school kids, high school is hopefully, if you're lucky, some of the best 4 years of your life, and the connections and the experiences you have. And last night I was telling you, we were at my daughter's a freshman, like Sue's daughter, and we were at the field hockey banquet. So all the seniors were talking and, getting really emotional and worked up about this being it for them and, leaving high school. So there's so much to experience and to learn, evolve and grow, and develop as a person in those 4 years. If they are coming in at 14 and already focusing on, oh, well, I can't get a C on this test because I have to get into X college or whatever. They're going to miss all of those beautiful things. And what a shame, because they have them right there at their fingertips. So we have to teach them how to appreciate them and just live them and get to experience them fully, because there's just too much of this going on. I think we have to change, and it's programs like yours that are going to do it. So I feel like you're giving our youth a real gift, Sue. You really are.
I hope so. They're giving a lot back to me. I will tell you, it works both ways for sure. For sure. These little kids, these middle kids and big kids, they're smart, they're intuitive, they're innovative. They are fun. It's allowing them to do that.
Yes.
Allowing them to do that. And then you'll see the joy. There's some amazing personalities out there and world changers, right? We need those.
We do. We do. Oh, God.
They're all there. They're all out there. We were just talking about our kids with the editing and how they have strengths that we don't.
Yep. And we can learn from them. We totally can learn from them.
We really, really can. So what I was going to say when I said I forgot it before was I do feel like things dip, right? And we go down and we go into that dark place. And then sometimes that's a rock bottom, or just sometimes that's a huge long pause for a shift. I am super confident we're in that shift. We are coming down to it just can't go the way that it's going. So I'm really excited for this shift that's taking place. It's conversations like this. These aren't the only ones. There's a lot more noise going on out there.
Yep.
People want to change, and they want to change for the better. So I'm really, really excited. And even in those stressful moments where we're all like, this is not going to work. This is the work. Is this as good as it gets? No, it's going to get better.
I love that. And for people who are trying to, start, I would suggest for anybody just to start small with anything, right? With this or anything else. But so for somebody who's listening and thinks, yeah, this makes a lot of sense, I want to start incorporating more of these things. I know you gave those 3 tips about, being aware, figuring out what is causing the overwhelm, making a list, and tackling, compartmentalizing is the word you use, what's important right now, what we can put off, what we need to do to get through the hour, the day, and going along with all that, what we need to do to take care of ourselves. I mean, those are really important pieces. But that initial piece of being mindful and being aware of what's taking place really comes from that being intentional, being in the moment, breathing, using, a meditation. So for somebody starting small, like, what would you recommend to them as a way to start this type of practice? I know there's a lot of apps out there. You can do it on your own. What would you recommend?
There's a lot of things to do. I think truthfully, you have to find what works for you. So I would say the most controlled thing for everyone that they can do, and it's out there, it's buzz right now, is to practice intentional breathing. If you practice, and you can carve out a couple of minutes a day. The recommendation, truthfully, is 20 minutes a day.
Okay.
And that seems long. But if you work up to it and start small with a couple of minutes a day, and you really focus on intentional breathing, and I'm going to add the next layer, nasal breathing just solely through your nose. The benefits are pages and pages of benefits that are going to regulate your body. It's going to regulate your nervous system. It's going to clear out brain fog. I mean, then the list goes on. It's just does good for your body. So, number one, just do that. Close the door like you're taking that bath.
Yep.
Tell them you're going to the bathroom. Go sit in your car. I find myself going when we come home from my Uber driving
Yep.
responsibilities. I sit in the car. Everyone leaves and they go in the house, and I sit in there and I sit and I intentionally breathe for 2 minutes. That's it. And I just recenter myself. So that, I say, it would be number one.
Okay.
That's how you can start. It's controllable and you can do it anywhere and you don't need anything.
And we could start right this second, it's immediate.
And build up, and you will see the long-term benefits in your whole body over time, and building up to setting a goal for those 20 minutes a day.
Thank you. That's doable. We can do that. I think we have to remind ourselves, like, we're not going to see, I've done this before, and I feel that you almost immediately feel better, even if it is only 2 minutes. I mean, the longer, the better, but it's not something that it's going to be a quick fix per se, but it's something that we have to start incorporating, just like brushing our teeth, just like, taking a shower, like it's just got to be part of the daily routine, because I think it's too important not to be. Thank you so much. You're the best. I'm so glad you're bringing all of this to our attention.
Thank you.
And we could talk about it forever. And Sue and I have decided, since we do both have children and they're similar ages too, we are going to do another episode. If you found this interesting today, we're going to be doing another episode really solely focused on the kids and what they're seeing and what they're dealing with, and how we can offer little tools for them. And we're going to have the kids on. So probably they're probably going to be our kids that are going to be coming on, but it'll be fun. It's going to be a little bit different format, but we will be talking to Sue again soon and hearing right from the mouths of babes, hear what they have to say.
That's right. They'll tell us everything and more.
Yes. Yep. And we will learn from them, because they have a lot to offer and a lot to teach us too. So thank you. I really can't thank you enough for this conversation today.
Thank you. I will tell you, you definitely filled my cup up, so I appreciate it. I wish you the best of luck, and I'm cheering you on as you move through this next journey, which is going to help so many people and just be so inspiring and fun. So best of luck to you.
That's the plan. I think we all deserve to just start having more fun and enjoying life a lot more, not a little bit more, a lot more in the coming days. So, all right. Thank you, Sue. We'll talk to you soon.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you for listening today. If you enjoyed the episode, I'd be very grateful if you'd subscribe and share. You can also find more on Facebook and Instagram. Just search Let's Slow Down the podcast. Thanks. Wishing you a calm and peaceful day.